It was an early winter morning, the kind that turns city streets into a collage of bustling energy and frosty air. Pedestrians hurried past each other, their breaths forming little puffs of vapor in the cold. The downtown area was alive, yet the atmosphere carried a subdued weight typical of mornings, where everyone was moving, yet not fully awake. Amid the chaos of the city's rhythm stood a quaint cafe nestled between towering office buildings. It was a small haven, a place where people sought warmth and caffeine to prepare for the day ahead. Inside, the cafe was a picture of comfort. The walls were adorned with rustic wood panels and art that celebrated the city's cultural diversity. A mellow jazz tune played in the background, adding to the cozy atmosphere. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the faint scent of pastries. The soft hum of voices mixed with the sounds of baristas working their machines. It was a space where people from all walks of life found a common refuge, a place to pause before stepping back into the noise of the world. Malcolm Hayes pushed open the glass door, the soft jingle of the bell above announcing his arrival. Dressed in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit and a crisp white shirt, he looked every bit the professional. He had an air about him that turned heads, not because he sought attention, but because his presence seemed to command it. Malcolm was tall, his frame lean but strong. His dark skin seemed to glow under the soft cafe lighting, and his sharp features carried both a quiet confidence and a sense of dignity. He glanced around the cafe, taking in the familiar scene. People sat at small wooden tables, some hunched over laptops, others chatting animatedly. A group of students occupied the corner, their laughter occasionally breaking through the ambient noise. Malcolm moved to the counter, his polished shoes clicking softly against the floor. "A black coffee, no sugar," he ordered, his deep voice calm but authoritative. The barista nodded, momentarily caught off guard by his commanding tone. As Malcolm waited for his order, he glanced at his watch. It was rare for him to have a free morning like this. His schedule as the Attorney General was grueling, filled with back-to-back meetings, court appearances, and policy discussions. But today, he had carved out this moment for himself, a chance to step away from the demands of his position and simply exist as Malcolm Hayes, not the title he carried. When his coffee was ready, Malcolm thanked the barista, picked up the warm cup, and moved to a quiet corner near the window. He set his laptop on the table, the screen casting a faint glow on his face as he opened it. Outside, the city buzzed with life, but inside this little cafe, he found a rare sense of calm. Malcolm immersed himself in his work, his fingers typing rhythmically on the keyboard. Occasionally, he would pause to sip his coffee, his gaze drifting to the street outside. For a while, it seemed like the morning would pass without incident, but the peace was abruptly shattered. The cafe doors swung open with a loud clang, the bell above jingling violently. The sudden noise turned heads, and conversations came to an abrupt halt. A man in a police uniform entered, his heavy boots thudding against the floor as he stepped inside. Officer Mark Daniels scanned the room with an intensity that sent a ripple of unease through the patrons. Daniels was a familiar figure in the city, though not in a way that inspired confidence. Known for his brash demeanor and controversial actions, his presence often signaled trouble. He was a man who carried his authority like a weapon, using it to assert dominance rather than protect. Today, his gaze zeroed in on Malcolm, and his expression hardened. The air in the cafe grew tense as Daniels marched toward Malcolm's table. His posture was rigid, his hand resting on the belt where his badge and cuffs gleamed under the light. "You don't belong here," Daniels said, his voice cutting through the silence like a knife. Malcolm looked up from his laptop, his calm gaze meeting the officer's hostile glare. "Excuse me?" he said, his tone steady but questioning. "You heard me," Daniels snapped. "I said you don't belong here." Around them, patrons exchanged uneasy glances. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others reached for their phones, sensing that this interaction was about to escalate. "I'm not sure I understand," Malcolm said, closing his laptop slowly. "I'm sitting here, drinking coffee that I paid for. What exactly is the issue?" Daniel's lip curled in disdain. "The issue is that this isn't a place for people like you," he said, his voice low but dripping with venom. The implication in his words was clear. and it sent a wave of shock through the cafe. A few patrons gasped audibly, while others murmured in disbelief. Malcolm's expression remained calm, though his gaze sharpened. "And what exactly do you mean by people like me?" he asked, his voice carrying a quiet edge. "You know what I mean," Daniels replied, his tone growing more aggressive. Malcolm leaned back in his chair, his composure unshaken. "No, officer, I don't. Perhaps you'd like to explain." Daniels stepped closer, his imposing frame casting a shadow over the table. "Don't play games with me," he snarled. "Leave willingly, or I'll make you." Malcolm placed his coffee cup down and stood up slowly. He adjusted his tie, his tall frame and measured movements commanding attention. Around them, the cafe patrons watched with bated breath, their phones now recording the confrontation. "I have no intention of leaving," Malcolm said, his voice calm but firm. "I'm not breaking any laws, and I have every right to be here." Daniel's patience was wearing thin. His hand moved to the cuffs on his belt. "This is your last warning," he growled. At that moment, a middle-aged woman seated nearby stood up abruptly. "What are you doing?" she demanded, her voice trembling with anger. "He hasn't done anything wrong." Others began to voice their outrage. "This is unacceptable," someone said. "Leave him alone." But Daniels ignored them, his focus remaining solely on Malcolm. "Do you even know who I am?" Malcolm asked, his tone steady but carrying a hint of authority. Daniels hesitated, caught off guard by the question. "I don't care who you are," he snapped. "You should," Malcolm replied. Slowly, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a badge. The gold emblem gleamed under the cafe lights as he held it up for everyone to see. "My name is Malcolm Hayes," he announced, his voice clear and commanding. "I am the Attorney General of this state." The room fell silent. Daniel's expression shifted from anger to disbelief, his confidence crumbling in an instant. I didn't know," he stammered, his voice faltering. "That's the problem," Malcolm replied, his tone cold. "You didn't bother to know. You saw a black man sitting in a cafe and decided that was enough reason to harass him. And now, you're going to answer for it." The cafe erupted into applause, the patrons' voices filled with admiration and solidarity. Daniel stood frozen, the weight of his mistake sinking in. Within hours, videos of the incident flooded social media, sparking outrage and calls for justice. Hashtags like Justice for All and End Racism trended, as thousands demanded accountability. Malcolm's calm yet powerful response resonated deeply, becoming a rallying cry for change. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you found this story inspiring and impactful, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friend, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on more meaningful content. And remember to hit the bell icon so you never miss a new upload. We've got plenty more stories that matter coming your way. Your support helps us create content that sparks change and empowers communities. Until next time, stay inspired, stay informed, and keep standing for what's right.